Shalom to our friends and students, and today we are going to study about this special holiday that is called Purim. Purim is being celebrated on the 14th of Adar around the world, except in Jerusalem, it's celebrated on the 15th of Adar, and this year, 5781, that the 15th of Adar is on Shabbat. Then the celebration goes from Thursday night till Sunday night. So, and the reading of the Megillah is on Thursday night, like everybody else, and Friday morning. Okay, so what's in it for us about Purim? And there's an amazing study from the Arizal in the Gates of Meditations, Shara Kavanot, and we will study from there. Okay, but before that, there is an amazing introduction that and a summary of my teacher of like memory, Rabbi Nissim Peretz, one of the greatest Kabbalists of this generation, and he's speaking about the greatness of Purim from the Arizal and the Rashash, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, and he says as follows: Omrim b'shem Arizal. It says. And that's, I think, a lot of people who know some Kabbalah, and even people don't know Kabbalah, know that it says that Yom Kippurim, Kepurim. Yom Kippurim is Kepurim. Kepurim in Hebrew means as or like Purim. When you say that something is like something else, of course, that something is in a lesser degree than that something else that you compare to. And we have to understand, צריך להבין, הרי כולנו יודעים את חרדת הקודש האוחזת בכל אדם ישראל ביום הכיפורים. Everybody knows that, you know, most Jewish people, when Yom Kippurim is coming, everybody is in awe. It's like you can't avoid this awesome power of Yom Kippurim. That אשר אין דומה לה בכל יומות השנה, there's nothing like it in any other day of the year. וכיוון שכן, and because so, איך שייך להבין את דברי האריזל? So how would the Arizal say that, and it's also, I think, in the Talmud, that Yom Kippurim is like Purim. It's not even in that level. וצריך לידע, אין כוונת הארי למשל ולמצרים. We have to understand that what the Arizal is saying, it's not a joke. It's not saying in a light-headed way. God forbid, chas v'shalom. אלא במציאות, we are talking about reality. What is the reality? מציאות ההרה שיש ביום הפורים, the reality of the illumination that is available during Purim, there is that level of illumination, that light that is shining during Purim is not available even on Yom Kippurim. Why? ההארה שיש ביום הכיפורים, ביום הפורים, היא הארה שאין כמותה בשום יום במשך השנה. There is no shining light like this, Purim, like any other day of the year. וצריך להבין מה הפשט בדברי הארי. But what does that mean? Let's start with a simple aspect. Why is that so? What's the meaning of it? הרי כל אחד מאיתנו יודע שאין מעלה יותר מיום כיפורים. Everybody knows there's nothing higher and more powerful, more awesome than the power of יום הכיפורים. שהרי יום הכיפורים אין מעלה כמעלתו בחינה של יום השבת של כל ששת הימים טובים שיש. When we're talking about the seven different holidays, יום הכיפורים is the Shabbat of all the holidays. And we know even that Tfilat Ne'ilah, at the end of Yom Kippurim, when we understand Kabbalah, it's even the highest of all the tefillot, of all the prayers of Yom Kippurim and any other time during the year. Mikol makom af yatzma היא רק כפורים. Even Tfilat Ne'ilah of Yom Kippurim, which means the last tefillah just before the shofar blowing, Okay, it's not in the level of Purim. דהיינו הארתה תפלה, its shining light is lesser than the לעוצמת ההארה, to the awesome power that is available during the day of Purim. אין לך יום בשנה שמגיע בעוצמת הארתו כיום הכיפורים. There's no other day along the year that has such a shining power as on Purim. ובאמת, לעניין זה של גודל הארת ימי הפורים, and truthfully, that issue of the greatness of the shining light of the days of Purim, מרומז בעצם שמו של היום. It's hinted in the name of that day, which is called Purim. Why it's called Purim? Al Shem HaPur. Pur means, it's like, Pur in Hebrew means like, it's a good luck. Like a drawing, like a raffle. As it says in the Megillah, כמבואר במגילה, שהמן הפיל פור. That Haman, how did he choose that day? He looked at the stars. We'll see it later on. He looked at the stars. It's like, but it was like doing a lottery. Hu agora, like a lottery. It sounds on a simple level like he did a lottery. And it's a big hint, says Rabbi Peretz. הכוונה בזה לרמז, כי כמו שיש מציאות שאדם יכול לעבוד עבודות מזדמנות, שנותנות רווח גדול המכניסות פרנסה בסכום גדול. Like a person, that he can take all kinds of jobs, that give him a lot of earnings. אפילו עבודה קבועה, even a steady job with a big salary, monthly. מכל מקום, anyhow, זה אינו דומה, it's not like מי שזכה במפעל הפיס בסכום אגדי. It will never be like somebody, like for most people, who won the lottery, and he got like few $100 million in the lottery, because the lottery can give the person something that has nothing to do or relate to his job, his talent, or his actions. He just bought a ticket. So the moment we say that Purim is like a lottery, we understand that there's something in Purim that is so unusual that has nothing to do with our actions during the whole year. Why? Because a job, you work harder and you're more talented, you can get a higher salary. Okay? But here, this is a lottery, has nothing to do with your hard work. כך גם כל עניין הפורים בחינת פיס גדול. The whole issue of Purim is like winning the lottery. The light that is shining in such awesome power, and not according, you don't have to be a righteous person to get that awesome light in Purim. What do you have to do in Purim? It's like Yom Kippurim, it's a very hard job. It starts 40 days earlier on Rosh Chodesh Elul, 40 days of slichot, prayers, fasting, Rosh Hashanah, the days of awe, and so on. When you come to Yom Kippurim, it's like you're working really hard for that. What's the hard work for Purim? The fasting of Esther, it's not even a fast, it's just from the morning. Whoever merits that light, whoever knows how to connect to that light, this shining light that you can draw, connect to on Purim has the effect for the whole year long. There's no other day you can get such an illumination along the whole year long. Okay? And that's why, you don't have to work so hard on Purim, so people think if it's not that hard, so it's not serious, it's just a holiday for kids. No, it's not. And how do we explain that? So he brings the Rashash, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, one of the greatest Kabbalists ever, that is from Yemen, but he moved to Jerusalem 18th century. And he simply opened up and expanded, like in a tremendous style, all the teachings of the Ari. And so without him, we would not understand how awesome it is, because Ari, we will see the words, is giving only a few sentences about it. So what he's saying, the light that is illuminating and coming out and from the heavens in a way of a miracle, it's a miraculous shining light. A, היא בעלת עוצמה מאוד, it's very, very powerful. B, היא יורדת מהגובה הגבוה ביותר עד עולם עשייה. It's coming from the highest possible realm of all the Sefirot, all the way down to עולם עשייה, the world of action. כלומר, meaning, 2 points. 1, the intensity of the light, and 2, that it's coming from the highest place possible. Not like the לא כעוצמת האור בשבתות וימים טובים. Not like the illumination of Shabbat and holidays, שמשפיע במשך כל השנה מעולם הצילות. Shabbat and holidays, we can draw light from עולם הצילות, the world of emanation, which is we are in the world of action, עולם עשייה. Above us, there is עולם יצירה. Connecting to עולם יצירה, that's every time we do something really spiritual, we connect to עולם יצירה. Okay? On the holidays, during the holidays and Shabbat, we can go up to עולם בריאה, the world of creation, and even higher to עולם אצילות, the world of emanation. Okay, the 4th level from our level. However, אלא כאן יורד האור מרישא דלית ידע. But the light we get on Purim is coming from Reisha Delayit Yada, which means the head that cannot be known, which means that's coming from the Keter, from the highest level of the supreme Keter. There's no holiday we can receive that light from the Keter. Oh, we can get Keter of Olam Yetzirah, not higher than that. But to receive the light from the real Keter, there's nothing like this along the whole year. And we can bring it down all the way down to the world of action, עולם עשייה. ואומר הרש"ש שההערה הזו מתגלה בתפילה. And this illumination is being revealed during the prayer, but we'll come to the Arizal. It's being revealed by all the actions that the sages revealed to us that we have to do on Purim in order to reveal that light, capture it, and make it stay for the rest of the year. That's what is important. Let's see. But first of all, in order to explain that, let's understand the historical background of Purim. It's very important because otherwise we will not understand what was happening. Okay, so first of all, when is it happening? First of all, it's relating to the destruction of the first temple some 2,600 years ago. The destruction of the first temple, what happened? The Babylonians destroyed the first temple in Jerusalem. Most of the people of the kingdom of Judea were taken to exile into Babylon and the surrounding area, which is Elam, Persia, and so on. And so they joined the brothers of the 10 tribes that were exiled to similar regions some 150 years almost earlier. Okay, a lot of Jews ran away to Egypt. There was already a bunch in Yemen. Some ran away to what is Tunisia of today. So, but the biggest bulk of the Jewish people was exiled into Babylon and the neighboring countries, which is today Iraq and Iran. Okay, so that's how we start our story. Then, few decades after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and the exile, during those decades, the Jews were a nation in captivity. Okay, The king of Jerusalem was held in the palace as a captive king, and so on, and the Jews were kind of slaves and captives. Then the fall of Babylon comes by the Persians, by Cyrus, King Cyrus, and King Cyrus and the Persians take over and they become the next big empire. Okay? When King Cyrus comes to power and he defeats the Babylonians, he declares a new world order. Okay? He declares that every nation that was subjugated by the Babylons should get their own autonomy, and he gave back to every nation their own autonomy, and not just their autonomy, also the right for worshiping their own religion and God. Okay, that was very, very special, because it was against, because the Babylonians, they were doing the exiles and the Assyrians also in order to assimilate all the nations into a big melting pot, so the empire will stay as long as possible. But it didn't work for them. Cyrus had another idea that lasted longer, because the Persian Empire lasted for many, many more years. Okay, so the Cyrus Declaration said also all the Jews who want to go back to Jerusalem, you have the right to go back to Jerusalem to re-inhabit your destroyed kingdom. You're going to get an autonomy. You're going to have a national home to the Jewish people. And I'm going to give you back from the treasury all the treasures of the temple that the Babylonians robbed. You'll get it back, and I'll give you a permit to rebuild the temple. Okay, so that's a Cyrus Declaration. The next thing was that some of the Jews, not all, went back to Jerusalem, went back to Judea, and were working really hard to rebuild the destroyed country. However, politics, as we know, started to fight, and there was the government in Persia, the government started to withdraw itself from its promises, and the permit to build the second temple has been canceled by the following regime that came after King Cyrus. There was a lot of political powers in the region that did not like the Jews coming back to power, and they had lobbies. Reminds you something? 1917, the Balfour Declaration, that was approved in the San Remo Declaration in 1920 and 1922, and the League of Nations approves that Israel is going to become the national home of the Jewish people, like, you know, the big vision of President Woodrow Wilson, that no more big empires, nation states will be established, so every nation has the autonomy for its own destiny and its own culture. But what happened to the Balfour Declaration? The east bank of the River Jordan has been torn away 3 years later and became the Kingdom of Jordan of today. And all the declaration that said everything should be done by the British mandate in order to bring Jewish people to settle every vacant land in Israel, they stopped it and they gave the lands to the Arabs. And they did not give, finally in 1939, the White Book did not permit any more Jews coming to Israel, almost. So it was really, because of political pressure, very similar situation. Okay? There were some other similar situations. And then the miracle of Purim historically brings the Jews to power in the regime that came in the government that came to Shushan after the miracle of Purim. Mordechai and Esther get a very big power next to the king in the government, and they issued the permit for the building of the second temple, and that's how the second temple was built. Decades after the the Cyrus Declaration. Okay, now, what does that mean spiritually? All with what we just explained, what does it mean in the upper world, in the spiritual real story? And Arizal is explaining as follows. Let's come to explain what is the issue of the days of Purim, Veha and the Megillah, Veha Mordechai and the Mordechai, which is a hint. The Arizal is talking about Mordechai as a noun, not as a name, but as a noun. We see this is really very crucial to understand. Mordechai was not the name of a person. There was a person, but it's a naming something much higher than that. And Umaot Mikbat Purim, and the charity of Purim, V'amishte, and the Purim Seuda, V'asimcha, and the celebration. Hineni Idbar Etzenu B'durshei Nukba D'Zer Anpin. So there is saying in the Tree of Life, when it's being explained about the evolution of the creation from the endless till the Tzimtzum, and then all the evolution of the Sefirot, and how they evolved one from each other till this world that we know evolved from the creation, from Let There Be Light. Also, we learn that every time there is a metaphysical situation, which is called galut, exile, the program of that situation, the spiritual background behind it, is that Zeranpin and Malchut are back to back. Zeranpin and Malchut are back to back, like when Adam and Eve were created, they were created as one, but back to back. Why? So when you're back, when is that two people standing back to back? On one hand, it's because they're trying to protect themselves from coming enemies, and they're afraid, so they're standing back to back in case, so they have a 360 sight, and they protect each other's back. And also, but if you're stuck back to back, it means there's also, you're not connected, because back to back means there's no connection. So during exile, the situation is that Zeranpin and Malchut, the spiritual world and the physical world, they are back to back during the weekdays. Unless, except from during the tefillah, when we pray, 3 times a day, we can bring Malchut and Zeranpin, the spiritual world and the physical world, into union. That is the purpose of the tefillah, the prayer, 3 times a day. Okay, on Shabbat 4 times a day, and on Shabbat the union continues the whole Shabbat. Okay, but and now we are in a state of exile. How do we know? If you see that there was the Balfour Declaration, like the Cyrus Declaration, Jews came back to Israel and they are fighting political forces outside Israel that do not allow the Jews to take over the country freely and rebuild the temple. So the exile state is still there, still happening. It's not over yet. And they're back to back. But when it's time for them to go face to face, how do you bring them face to face? How was Adam brought face to face with Eve? First of all, they had to be put to sleep. Adam had to be put to sleep. Okay, so God can make the surgery separate between the two, the female side and the male side. And now that they are now separated, now they have the free will to go face to face. So in order to create that procedure, we know that in order to create a surgery, you need, first of all, to create Domita, sleep. Now, Domita, as we explained, is Aramaic. It's coming from Hebrew, tardema. The biblical word in Genesis chapter 2 is tardema. In Aramaic is dormita. And that word emigrated to Latin, English, and other European languages, dormir, dormant, and so on. Sleep is dormant. And so there was a sleep in order for the surgery to happen. כדי שתעשה נסירה. כנזכר בדורשי ראש השנה, the same thing we learned about Rosh Hashanah that's happening every year. On Rosh Hashanah, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, in a similar way, in a way. ולהיות כעניין מרדכי ואסתר. And since the whole issue of Mordechai and Esther, the story of Purim, was exactly 70 years after the destruction of the first temple, and Jeremiah's prophet Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah's prophecy was, don't worry, the temple will be destroyed, but 70 years later, another one will be built. So the whole story of Mordechai and Esther, the story of the Megillah, happens 70 years after the destruction of the first temple. Why? It's time for the second one to be built. לכן אז בימיהם התחיל תיקון זרם ונוקבה. So the whole spiritual world was starting to go through that tikkun towards bringing the whole world into that place so the second temple can be built. But building the temple is not just a construction thing. The whole world has to change consciousness in order for that to happen. So when Zeranpin and Malchut, the physical world and the spiritual world, are in unison, in love, face to face, which means there is a real peace in the air and love is in the air, the physical manifestation was the second, politically, building of the second temple was okay, was accepted. Now, the whole process of turning around from exile, the transformation from a state of exile to a state of redemption, is the story of the book of Esther. Now that we understand it, we'll see how it's been, how can you see it through the reading of the story. Now, the result continues. That's in the Gate of Meditation, the issue of Purim. So the beginning of that. So if you want to take a state of exile, which means back to back, fear, disconnection, misunderstanding, lack of consciousness of flight and happiness and spirituality, in order for that to start, what do you need to start with? Domita, sleep. Shenasa, that happened, so that sleep happened during those days. However, and therefore there was a huge trouble that the Am Yisrael had during that time. Why? What happens when somebody is asleep? He's helpless, he's hopeless, he has no protection, and he has no awareness to the huge danger that he's facing because he's asleep. You know, we even see that say that. Why? He can't see what's happening around him. Is he asleep? He's not asleep. He wakes up every morning, even drinks a few coffees every day. The guy is even taking all kinds of vitamins to be more awake. He goes to the gym. He runs a few miles every day. You can't say he's asleep. He is asleep. Asleep is a state of consciousness that you are completely not aware of what's happening around you and the danger that is approaching you. And therefore, when it says, Eimach Hashecha Gdola, this is in the prophecy of Abraham's covenant with Hashem, that Eimach Hashecha, that's the sages are saying, this is about the story of Purim, was terrible fear and terrible darkness that was coming. And the sages said in a midrash that Chashecha, the darkness, it's Madai, media, that she'echshich eneim shel Israel. The eyes of the nation of Israel became darkened. They could not see what's going on, lack of consciousness. You think that you see, and you don't. V'yanovu. Because of the Domita. Okay. And just think about it. If there was a Balfour Declaration in 1917, and then you see very similar, Jews are coming back to Israel, But most Jews are in sleep state, and they don't even realize what's happening in Europe and the danger. Only very few could see the danger that is coming. They were like asleep. ונודע, כי המן הרשע היה אסטרולוגוס גדול, כנודע בעניין. We have to understand that Haman was a great astrologer and he was a big wizard. כנודע בעניין ויפל פור. He knew exactly what's going on. וידע בחוכמתו, he knew with his wisdom. עניין מיעוט השגחתו יתברך על ישראל בימים ההם. He knew exactly what's going on. He knew that the Jews are in a place that are totally asleep. They have no protection, and they can be brought to the slaughter like sheep to the slaughter, and they will not fight back. ולכן חשב ועלה בליבו, and therefore he thought that this is the time to get even, because Haman was a 10th generation from Agag the Amalekite. The king Shaul failed to kill in his war against the Amalekites. He wanted, that's why it says Haman ha-Agagi, Haman the Agagite. He was a descendant of the king of Amalek. That finally, King Agag, he was slaughtered by Prophet Shmuel. וזה סוד עניין ויכוח המן עם אחשוורוש. And that's why there was this kind of an argument between Haman and Achashverosh that is described in the Midrash. אם יעלה בידם עצה זאת, because the Midrash is saying, when Haman came to Achashverosh, the king, and told him, let's destroy all the Jews, והשיב לו Haman, and Achashverosh said, what do you think, I'm crazy? Whoever started up with them, look, he went to the garbage can of history. Where is Pharaoh? Where is Sancherib? Where are the Assyrians? Where are the Babylonians? Whoever started with them, I'm not going to really mess up myself by fighting those Jews. Said, so the answer in the Midrash, it says that a man said to Achashverosh, you're right. The God of the Hebrews is very powerful. However, he is asleep. And how do you see it? In the verse, in the Megillah, it says, Yeshno Am. Translation, it looks like, to the eye, to the, simple eye, Haman says, there is a nation that is spread and separated among the nation. Let's destroy them. But the word Yeshno can be also read Yashen Vav. Their God is asleep. Why? The Vav symbolizes Zeranpin. Zeranpin is the connection to the above. So if the Torah, how do we see when we see the Hagbah, the raising of the Torah, the columns in the Torah, they look like a long Vav. Every column, except from 5 places in the Torah, starts with the letter Vav. So we know that the Vav is a symbol to our connection to the God in heavens. That's a Vav. It's the link. But the moment it is asleep, what's happening when somebody is asleep? His soul is leaving, and there's just a silver line of light that keeps the body alive, but the soul is gone. You come to somebody who's asleep, there's nobody home. And that's what it says in the Talmud. So some people don't get it, and they think that Achashverosh was a stupid king. How did he believe Haman that the God of the Jews is asleep? Now, that was not a joke. There was a sleep state, the Domita. And what is the Domita? The Domita is a state that there's no justice. And you can really refer that to the time of the Holocaust. No justice, the whole world. It's like, it feels like God is, God forbid, asleep. No protection, no justice, all like the darkness is in control, and you can't fight it. You don't have any power because you're asleep. The light is asleep. Okay? And the Arizal is adding, because of that Domita, it was in favor of the Israelite nation. Why? Because the whole Domita was in order to bring the situation in which they will come face to face, and then the redemption could come. Okay? And the temple will be built. Therefore, Haman knew that also. So what he said to Achashverosh, during this time, I know that this time of the Domita is limited. But that is just for the purpose, like, you put somebody to sleep because he needs to go through an operation, but you don't want to harm him. You want to put him to sleep, to put him under anesthesia so he can be operated. And when he gets up, he will be much healthier because he went through the procedure. It opened up, whatever was blocked. So I said, as long as he's like the Jewish people is under anesthesia and the whole world is under anesthesia, let us use that opportunity. Let's destroy any hope. So when the time will come, there will be nobody that can be redeemed. Okay? And the temple will not be built. Okay? So we know that from other places, from other writings, and dai bazeh, enough with history. So we understand what was going on. However, there's one thing that Haman was not really aware of. Even during the time of the Domita, the female, the physical world, continues to move on. During the time, people still went to parties, they made business, they got married, they got divorced, they had children, the children went to school, got married and stuff like this. Everybody was, you didn't see physically the sleep. What happened was the sleep is a state of lack of light. It's like the world became dark. Okay? So when somebody is asleep, he's not really dead. He still has, the whole, all the organs are working and there's a blood circulation and the heart is pumping and so on and so forth. And the brain is active even during sleep state. So what is that activity? There is a line of light that is still maintaining life inside the body. And that line of light is that there is still kind of divine providence, protection on the nation of Israel from death, but it's a very thin light. And this shining light is the issue of Mordechai. Mordechai, who is the representative or the chariot of that special thin light that is shining to maintain the life of the body. Okay, so let's see how that evolves. Kirot Haman et Mordechai. And therefore, because when Haman already had a decree signed to kill and destroy every Jew in the great empire of Persia, from India all the way to Kush, like Black Africa, okay? He had that permit already. Still, when he saw Mordechai, he knew as long as that Mordechai is alive, I'm still not sure that I can make the project successful. So he got together with his wife, Zeresh, and 365 advisors. And the sages said in the Midrash that Zeresh, his wife, she was a great witch. And her advice was stronger and more powerful than all his 365 advisors. And what was their advice? To kill Mordechai, to hang him on a tree. And what is that tree? The tree was a tree with a spell, a dark spell. In order, it had the power of the leg of the kuf. You know, the letter kuf? which is also the letter of the month of Adar. The letter Kuf has a leg going under the line. It's the only Hebrew letter from the 22 letters that has a leg going under the line. It's called the leg of the Kuf, which is also called Raglea Yordot Mavet. Its feet going down to death. They wanted to stick him down into the klipa, into the dark side, so there won't be any illumination of light as hope. Because what's the Hebrew word for hope? Tikva. And the shoresh of the word tikva is kav. Kav means a line. A line. It starts also with a kuf. As long as you have that line connected to above, you're still safe. No matter what hardship you go through. And even you feel that God went to sleep. Where was God when? There's no generation like our generation that is asking that question all the time. Where was God when? He went to sleep. He was not asleep. There was still that line of light that is called Mordechai, and that line of light made it possible for the whole Jewish nation to resurrect itself. So, and then Hashem, Vaz Hashem Yitbarach, Hashem blessed be He, with His mercies, Berachamav, Heir Ha'arat Nukba Elyona, and then He made that shining of that hope, that light of the upper female, of the Shekhinah, and that's the greatness of Mordechai and Esther. And they came to make a change, to change that situation and to save the nation of Israel from that big trouble, as we're going to explain. והנה, שורש נשמת מרדכי הייתה מן ההערה ההיא. The root, the shoresh of the soul of Mordechai was from that illumination, from that line of light, that it doesn't matter how dark the situation would be, because you messed up, because the universe is messed up. Whatever that line of light, that hope, that vision, that illumination, that was presented in this physical world by the soul of Mordechai. And that's why the salvation of the nation of Israel was by Mordechai. וזה נרמז and this is being hinted by the name Mordechai, exactly. Now, if you simply read the name Mordechai, you say that's very simple. It was a common name at that time in the Persian Empire because Marduk was the god of Babylonia. So there were a lot of people with that name. But the Arizal is saying, no. Mordechai, his name was a biblical name. Shamuzal, Huleshon, it says in a Midrash, Mordechai is coming from Mira Dachya in Aramaic, which is Mordechai. Mira, you know what's myrrh? That's the incense of the temple incense, myrrh. Okay? Dechai means pure myrrh. And that's how you say in Aramaic, Mordro, in the book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 23. It speaks about the substances of the holy incense in the temple. One of them is myrrh. And the name of myrrh in Hebrew is Mordro. Translation, Mordechai. Mordechai means pure myrrh. גם נקרא moreover. It's also called flowing myrrh, so that it's speaking about the very, very holy, thin light that flows through all the sefiot, through all the tree of life. והעניין הוא, and the matter is, כי ההערה הגדולה היא, that great illumination, היא מורדור. It's pure light. Pure and clean, totally. העוברת מפי יסוד הנוקבה ולחוץ. So that light is shining from the highest place, we're going to talk about it later on, from the highest place in the tree of life, from the keter of the tree of life, all the way down till the yesod of Malchut and outside. And that is being hinted also in the verse in the Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 5, Veyadai natfu mor, and my hands were dripping with myrrh, and ve'etzbaotai mor over, and my fingers are dripping with that flowing myrrh. Okay, so on the keys, it's amazing all of these like whole network of hints showing there was something happening in the background. So the political story was just a cover story for a real spiritual, metaphysical, big story that was happening in the background. Most people could not see that. Whoever had the ability to see the vision saw what's going on. Okay? So Mordechai, as we said, was that shining pure light that allows any human being, even if they fall to the darkest place, that shining line of light, that illumination is over there. If you know to hold on to it, you can save yourself from anything. Just the way to find it. And that's what Purim is about. ואומנם, היות ימי הפורים האלו נעשים בכל שנה ושנה, since these days of Purim happen every year, ולא הספיק לעשות בזמן ההוא לבדו, it was not enough, it was not a one-time revelation. It became a revelation that repeats itself every year. The reason is, כי השם יתברך ברחמיו. This is a very powerful expression of the Arizal, of Rabbi Isaac Luria. כי השם יתברך ברחמיו. The Hashem, with his mercies, רצה, he wanted, שאותה הערה מתחדשת, that renewing illumination of the Mordechai, of hope, בהיות המוחין דאבא ואימתוך הנקבה בזמן דורמיתא, whenever there will be a time of Domita, okay, that illumination will never be cancelled. לא תתבטל לעולם, it will shine forever. בכל שנה ושנה, every year, בימים ההם עצמם, on those certain days. ורצה השם יתברך, and he also wanted, שבכל שנה בימי הפורים כיוצא בהם. אף אם יהיו זר ונוק בפנים בפנים, even though, every year, even though we will be in a state of exile or in a state of redemption, this illumination will exist, will shine, and will never be cancelled. לכן, and therefore, לעתיד לבוא, in the future days to come, when Mashiach comes, כל הספרים יתבטלו. It is a very known thing. All the books will be cancelled. They won't be needed anymore. Because when Mashiach comes, we don't need Rosh Hashanah to cleanse ourselves. We do not need Yom Kippur to atone. We do not need Passover to remove our selfishness, our chametz. We have no need for all of that stuff, except Chutz Megillat Esther. Only the book of Esther will stay. והטעם, and the reason is, כי לעולם לא היה נס גדול כזה. This is a miracle that will never happen before. But how can you compare it to the 10 plagues, to the Exodus, Mount Sinai revelation? No, that was bigger than that. לא בשבתות, not on Shabbat, ולא בימים טובים, not on holidays. להתקיים ההערה הזאת, so that illumination will continue to exist. אף אחר הסלקות המוחים מן הנקבה. That illumination continued even after there was a Domita. Only Purim made that light reveal itself. ובבחינה זו יש יתרון גדול על פורים, and that's why Purim is stronger than all the other holidays, even Shabbat and other holidays. This is the power of Purim. So, how do we connect to it? First of all, the reading of the Megillah, and so let us go a little bit to the story before we go to a deeper place. So, Vayi b'mei Achashverosh, it was in the time of Achashverosh. That's a Megillah, the book of Esther. Now, the book of Esther was written with the Holy Spirit, with the Ruach HaKodesh. And therefore, every word of it, every letter is divine. It's not a human logic that wrote it down. So the whole story, which is called Megillat Esther, translation, the parchment or the scroll of Esther, but what the sages are saying, Megillat in Hebrew can be read also as the revelation. Esther can be meaning also of what is concealed. So you can read it as the book of Esther. Esther is also a common name in Persia of that time, a star. That's where the word a star comes from, because that one of the goddesses of Babylonian, the great goddesses of her name was Esther. So that was also a common name. But so on the superficial level, it's like two assimilating Jews with foreign names of local gods are trying to create a miracle to save their nation. But in the background, it's a totally different story. Like the story of the Megillah. You read the story of the Megillah and you cannot find one mentioning of God's name. One. So because it's the book of Esther, you have to reveal God's activity, because everything that happened in the Megillah, nothing compares to the Exodus from Egypt. There were no miracle of that size and magnitude. The miracle was, however, huge, because history has changed forever till today, thanks to that miracle. But let's see what happens. So the story starts with the king Ahasuerus is doing that huge feast. As you know from, if you learn history of those days, that's how the kings of Persia were living. They were drinking a lot and making feasts. Till today, Persians have that liking to feast of long times and all of that stuff. Okay, so that's the story how it starts. And then in a weird way, Esther is being captured, brought to the palace, and from all the beauties in the empire, Esther is chosen to be the next queen of Persia. However, of the empire, she gets the message from Mordechai, do not tell anyone that you're Jewish. Okay? And then the story goes on till the decree, and Mordechai learns about this terrible decree, and he's fasting. The Jews are fasting. Everybody's upset about the big trouble. And just to remind everybody, the decree was issued, if you read the Megillah, it says clearly on the 13th day of Nisan. Okay? 2 days before the Seder. On the 13th day of Nisan, the decree has been issued. But the decree was that in 12 months, it was a leap year that year, in 12 months from now, all the Jews of the kingdom on the 13th of Adar will be executed by every non-Jew. Simply, that's the law of the king. Every non-Jew who sees a Jew should kill him in 1 day. No concentration camps, no final solution. In 1 day, slaughter every Jew that you see, leave no soul alive. That was a decree. How come you're going to tell your enemy that in a year from now, you're going to kill him and are not going to do anything? So the guy in Germany also, he said exactly what he was going to do. And the Jews of Europe were stuck. They couldn't even find a way out. There was sleep. Nobody knew what to do. Finally, Mordechai says to Esther, go to the king and ask him. And Esther says, the king does not allow anyone in. If I'm going to the king right now without being called, I can be executed. But you know what I'm going to do? Don't just fast there. Go, lech knos et kol hayudim. Go gather all the Jews and make them fast for 3 days, 72 hours. And share with each other, pray with each other, and get united. Lech knos. Why they were, what is separation, Domita? it's always because of separation, disunity. Do the opposite. Get them united. Get them united. And after they are united, then I'll go to the king. So they fast for 3 days. So these 3 days were 14, 15, 16 of Nisan. What does it mean? That was Erev Pesach. That was Pesach. That Pesach, nobody ate matzah. There was nobody celebrated the Seder. Nobody drank 4 cups. Nobody ate maror. There was no Seder that year because everybody was fasting. Okay? 3. So what's the word is that Esther is saying, okay, guys, Mordechai, get them all together. Get them to think about hope. Get them to pray and connect to the 72 names. How do we know? Because the next word is Vaya'avor Mordechai. And Vaya'avor, we hear that name in 2 contexts. 1, the 13 attributes, Slichot. Whenever there's a trouble, 13 attributes connect to where? To the higher Keter. Vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra Hashem Hashem. That's what we do in Slichot for these 40 days of Slichot till the end of Yom Kippur. But also if you take the word Vayavor, you find inside Ayin Bet, 72 names, and Reish Yud Vav, which is 216 letters in the 72 names. Ayin Bet is Chesed, right column. Reish Yud Vav, 72. Reish Yud Vav is the numerical value 216, which is also the same Gematria, the numerical value of Gevura, left column. So when the left and the right are not united, there's imbalance, and then everything goes terrible. So those 3 days, there was a miracle. The miracle was that the Jewish people united. They fasted. They gave gifts to the poor, and they shared gifts with each other. And what do you know? You know very well when you study Kabbalah. When somebody's in trouble and you don't know what to do and you feel like you're in total darkness, you are in Domita. How do you wake the light? Give unconditionally. Without an expectation, just give, because by that you awaken the power of Chesed, 72. Chesed Gematria, 72. And when you awaken the power of Chesed, you change. So what happened? So now we come to that part of the Megillah that says, Balayla Aruna Dedash Natamelech. And the halacha says that the reader in the synagogue should read it loud to awaken everybody who fell asleep. Who could fall asleep when everybody's making noise every time the word Haman is being mentioned? No, it is because 3 days passed, 72 hours, and after they passed, the king could not sleep anymore. The Domita state has been transformed into awakened state, and the decree is over. The darkness is being removed by whom? By the actions of the nation of Israel. That what created the holiday. Bringing the 13 attributes, bringing the 72 names, bringing that light of Mordechai to the world with total certainty and with total love and affection and unity, that changed the cosmic structure of the tree of life and brought in that light, and it was not by God. It was done by the people. God gave the opportunity by sending Mordechai and Esther. But the fact that the Jewish people got together and did it together, that is the miracle. The light that was brought down changed the whole story. And now, and that's why Balayla Una Dedash Natamelech. And the king could not sleep anymore. Okay? So now what's the story? So in the physical level, Mordechai sees, as we read before, that as long as, Haman sees, as before, as we said before, that as long as Mordechai is alive, there's a hope. He realized that he was not stupid. He was very wise, says the Arizal. So he says, okay, we are going to kill all the Jews in a year from now. That's for sure. We have time to get organized, to send the messages, to get the whole empire ready for that final solution. But as long as Mordechai is alive, I'm afraid they have still hope, this illumination. So they wanted to kill him. So Haman is coming with that death warrant to the king to sign the death warrant to kill Mordechai and to hang him on that tree of 50 cubits high. 50 cubits? Do you know what 50 cubits is? 25 meters high. Like, that's huge. Why? Because it was a jinxed tree in order to stick Mordechai's illumination into the 50th level of impurity, where there's no hope anymore. However, Haman was late, 72 hours late. When he comes, it's exactly after the king, the spiritual king, the king of the universe, woke up, which means the state of Domita have been transformed to a state of face-to-face. And what does it mean, Domita? You don't feel light, you don't feel lucky, you feel that whatever you do goes wrong. The best thing is to go and sleep because nothing works for you. And you're not protected. Everything hurts you. Everything, you're being caught by everybody. We know those days. What's the only way to get out of it? Hope. Think about the light and the great good of the Creator and do good with other people unconditionally. That's the only way to turn that around. And that's what the Jews did during these 72 hours. When they woke up, the king of the universe, what does it mean? He doesn't feel anymore that God went to sleep. Suddenly, the good is being rewarded, and the evil is being punished as a normal reality should be. So Haman comes exactly 72 hours later. The king cannot sleep. He wakes up. He cannot fall asleep again. And suddenly he has this idea he needs to read his memoir. He gets the book of history of his regime, and he realizes that 10 years earlier, there was a plot to kill him, and Mordechai found that plot and saved the king, and nobody rewarded the Mordechai. So the king is saying, like, this suddenly, out of the, what? The middle of the night, a Persian king, you can't sleep, so bring in like that belly dancer. What do you mean you're reading books about history? That's not like Persian kings. But he wants that book and he reads about it, and finally, the most important thing for him is to reward Mordechai 10 years later. Can't explain that, but physically, it doesn't look like a miracle. It's just a coincidence. But that coincidence was crucial. Haman just came in. So he says, okay, I have to do something. I need somebody to help me reward Mordechai. I'm the king. I'm not doing that. I have to send somebody who is in the court. And Haman was there with the death warrant. And the king says to Haman, oh, you're the wisest guy I have. Tell me, what should be done to the person that the king wants everybody to know he cares for? Haman, of course, he's sure that's how the ego works. Who does the king want to reward? Only me. So he's already starting, his ego is expanding. Okay, he just wants to be like the king. So let's dress him with the king's garb and clothes, and let him be going in the city, the capital city of Shushan, riding the king's horse, the royal horse, with the crown of the king, with the scepter of the king, and somebody really important should walk him outside and say, so should be done to the person that the king likes. And the king says, I know You are the smartest person in the kingdom. Go do that to Mordechai. Wow. And that's what Haman is doing. He comes home with full shame, like, what happened? Where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? He didn't realize that the decree could be changed during those 3 days, especially that on Pesach, you can still change everything that is connected to conflicts in the world in the next coming year. He did not know that. So he comes home and tells his wife and advises what happened. And his wife is saying, Zeresh, because Mordechai is a Jew, you started to fall, you will fall. It's over. Why? She said, we missed the 72 hours were over. The Domita is over. And from now on, everything is going to be down the hill. And of course, the next thing, Mordechai, Esther is bringing Haman to fall in front of the king on her bed, and the king executes him. Everything turns right. Okay? And that's why it's so important that that verse, Balayla Hahu, that we see right now, Nadedash Natamelech, it's the turning point in the history of the planet. Because from Domita, the whole era of this first temple and then the sleep state that the world fell into in the destruction of the temple has been turned to a new era, the time of the second temple, on that moment, on that day. Okay, so we are celebrating that shining light that was shining at that time, and we can connect to it again. Okay, so as we said before, and here just to continue the story, when it's being explained how the 10 sons of Haman were hanged, this is a very peculiar way because you saw how the Megillah is written. There's one page in the Megillah that the names of the 10 sons of Haman are written down, but if you notice, there are 3 anomalies. On the second line from the top, which means the second word from the top, Parshan Data, you see that the letter Tav is tiny, very tiny Tav, okay? Then if you go down, you see in Parmashta, that's 4 from the bottom, on the right, you see the Shin, a very tiny Shin over there. And then in the bottom one, Vaizata, there's a tiny letter Zayin. For thousands of years, nobody knew what these 3 letters are for. Taf Shin Zayin, we know today, it's a date. It's the Hebrew year of 1947. Okay? The Hebrew year corresponding to 1947. What happened in 1947? The Nuremberg trials happened in 1947. There were 11 heads of the Nazi regime that were brought to trial, public trial for the whole world, and they were sentenced to death. One of them committed suicide, so 10 of them were hung. It was Tafshin Zayin. It was the end of 1946, but in the Hebrew year, already started of Tafshin Zayin. The last of the 10, when he was brought to be hanged, he screamed, here we have another Purim spiel, another Purim celebration. It's not a spiel because it's a show. Purim spiel in Yiddish, for the Jews of Eastern Europe, was every Purim they did, like in every community, they were performed like a Purim show, a Purim play that brings some pictures from the Book of Esther. It's called Purim Spiel, okay, Purim play. He was screaming, here we have another Purim Spiel. That was in the newspapers everywhere. around the world. And that was Taf Shin Zayin, which we can only think that those 10 sons of Haman came back in incarnation to those 10 heads of Nazi Germany who were executed exactly to the year that was mentioned for thousands of years, just in front of our eyes, on this page in the Megillah. Now, the point is right now, and the Arizal is saying, if there was so much light, the question was, all of this light, how do we connect to it? The sages were the Anshe Knesset Dola those days. It was the greatest sages. It was a high court of the Jewish people, 120 people with Ruach HaKodesh, with the Holy Spirit. And they were waiting for another year to see, would that light that was shining during Purim itself will be shining again? And they realized it was. So how do we capture that light? Where a holiday in the Torah is called Mikra'ei Kodesh, calling the holiness in. Also Shabbat, V'karata leShabbat Oneh, should call the holiness of Shabbat in with pleasure. So, and then they realize there are few actions to do on Purim in order to call in that holiness so we can have it, so we can transform ourselves to overcome any Domita, any sleep state, to overcome and to turn it into from exile to redemption, personally, individually, and also for the future days to come. So first of all, it's the reading of the Megillah. I'm still reading from the Arizal. זה סוד קריאת המגילה, that's the reading of the Megillah. וגם התפשטותה בעת קריאתה, and that's why when you read the Megillah, before you open the Megillah, before you read, you have to open the whole parchment to the full length of it, and that's a halacha, that's a law. לטעם פרסום הנס. What does it mean? To draw in the power of the miracle. Why? הוא עניין, says the Arizal, עניין עטרת מלכות Abba. This is the story that the light of Mordechai that is coming down to this world during that Purim is a very long, thin light of greatness that is coming from the upper Keter through Malchut of Abba, the crown of Malchut of Sfirat Chochmah, and then it goes through the tree of life and reveal itself during that reading in the physical world, in Malchut, in the mundane. That's why Purim does not need the security you have on Shabbat and holidays, especially Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, you do not eat, you do not drive, no electricity, no work, whatever, but because you have really to guard that light that is coming down. It cannot come down too much to earth, so we have to go up for it. And that's why we do not work, we do not drive, electricity, fire, whatever, all that stuff, cooking. Okay, but in Purim, it goes all the way down. So we don't need to guard it. It is secure, doesn't need us to secure anymore. Okay, it being revealed down below in the physical world. So to show that line of light is coming from the highest possible, all the way to the lowest part of Malchut of this world, Olam Asiyah. That's how we show that it's like a long, long, long Vav. That's the length of the Megillah. And that's why it's called Megillah, Leshon Gilui. Megillah in Hebrew also means not just parchment or a scroll, means also to reveal. And you have to reveal it and to publish it. Gam Megillah, below you. But if we read, we see the word Megillah without Yud. In most places it's written like this, without the Yud. Hi ola begimatria ein chet. This is the number, Gimatria 78, I'm sorry. 78 is 3 times the Tetragrammaton, 3 times Youdkevitch, 26, 26, 26. And what is that? This is Inyan Gimel Mochin de Chabad Tenei Dehaba. It's like the upper three sfirot. Okay? It's coming down to be revealed through Olam Atzilut, but it's coming from it's the same place that the 13 attributes is coming from. This is the place that is called Mazala 78. Mazala 78. And what is this decade? We are right now in Tafshin Pei decade, which is 780. It started last year. Okay? 780. That power of Mordechai is being revealed the whole decade. And it's changing the whole world. As we see, the rules of the game are changing in front of our eyes every day. And whoever is trying to hold on to the past, it's over. The past is over. We have to look forwards because we are facing greatness like never before in history. Of course, what happened in Purim? There was big pain. A lot of stuff of the old had to die, to be operated and cut off, so the new can be revealed. So that is the secret of the Megillah, 78 or 10 times 780. It's a big, big power revealing from the upper keter. And how do you call the upper keter? Crown. Crown or corona in Latin. These are the lights that are being revealed through the Megillah. And וזהו עניין היות המגילה נקרא איגרת. That's why the Megillah is also called a letter. A letter, it's ונקרא ספר, a book, but ספר, it's the same source as sapphire. You know that the English word sapphire is coming from Hebrew, sapir, that is coming from the word sefer, which is ספירה, illumination. ויש לה דינים כתורה שבכתב. You write the Megillah like you write the Torah, because the Torah is also from the place of Yesod De'aba, Yesod of Sfirat Chokhmah, which is called Torah Shebichtav. Tzurat Sefer, and also the Torah is written also like a long vav. But this Megillah is being not like the Torah. The Torah we read, we open only for what we read at the time. But the Megillah is like a long, we open the whole thing to show that this light goes through all the tree of life, from the upper keter all the way down to the lowest level of Malchut of Olam Asiyah, to show that this light is now revealed by the reading of the Megillah. So Likro Megillah could be translated to read the Megillah, but Likro in Hebrew means also to call. We calling this special light of Mazala, the upper light, the upper good luck of destiny, the secret of destiny. We draw it from there in order to change destiny for the good. Okay, so now we'll continue. And it says as follows. Just a second. Okay. Now, this light, I'm reading right now from the commentary on the Rashash, on Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, from Yeshivat Nehar Shalom, Rabbi Arav Bnayahu Shmueli, one of the greatest Kabbalists of the generation. And he says, in Pesach and all other holidays, Zeir Anpin explains about the whole cosmic structure that is happening in every holiday, and the lights being revealed, as we said before. However, we said he adds something else to what we explained from the Ari. That's a commentary on what we read in the Ari. And what happened is that it's an awakening of holiness that is coming to fight against the dark side till it surrenders. Because every holiday, the same light that was revealed at the first time that holiday was created, basically what's a holiday? It's a big light that came in order to remove darkness so humanity can move on, history can roll up the scale. Okay? Now, every year during the same holiday, the dark side tries again. Maybe this time it's going to be successful, but it does not have the power anymore because it has already been surrendered by the light in the first time when the holiday just happened, when that was created. Now, that's why every year the holiness is winning again. So the darkness of Egypt is awakening again every year on Passover. If you connect, and when you connect to the Seder, to the whole power of Pesach, you have the power to overcome that darkness. So the same light, same big light is being revealed every holiday, like that light that was revealed those times when it happened the first time. ולכן מרגישים אור גדול של חג. That's why you feel a great light of a holiday. Whoever is sensitive can feel that awesome light every holiday that is being revealed. וכן גם ביום פורים, the same thing on the day of Purim. This great light is being revealed that is called Ateret Yesod Ha'ava. Okay? This is the Ateret, the crown of Yesod of Chokhmah. Whoever knows what those, the Keter. Leachnia, and that light has the power to surrender the Klipa, the dark force that is called Haman, that the dark side reveals himself through it. And therefore, Lachen Simcha Gdola. That's why it's a very big celebration. And you have to celebrate and to make a big, big feast for that. Why? All the mitzvot in Purim. Because through these mitzvot, this great light can be revealed. And that's what our sages said in the halacha. Kra'a lemafre'a lo yatsa. If you read the Megillah backwards, it's like you didn't read it. Now, who would be that insane to read the Megillah backwards? Like, to read such a long story backwards? No. And why? So why the sages said that? So the sages explained it. מי שקורא את המגילה כסיפור שהיה פעם הוא אוהב, what does mean למפרע? Backwards. It means not that you read the Megillah from the end to the beginning. No, if you read it backwards, when your mind is backwards, you read it as tradition. You know, we have to remember our past because a nation without a past has no future. It's all a matter of tradition. It's a matter of folklore. It's a matter of national identity and so on. And we just want to remember that because that's what makes us special. Okay? And that's what unites us. We have a common history. Nonsense. Whoever reads the Megillah, like we are just having a tradition to remind everybody for something that happened in the past. And it's nostalgia. Klomar, whoever does not think and is not aware of that the same light is being revealed right now, today on Purim, like it was revealed then, whoever doesn't think so, he did not read, it's not considered that he read the Megillah. Because in English, the word is read the Megillah, but in Hebrew is Kariat Megillah. He called that light of the upper Keter, the upper Corona. He called that light. If you think that this is only tradition, then you didn't call anything because you don't believe in that. And the moment you don't believe in that, forget it. לא יצא ידי חובתו, you did not receive that light. והיות והאור הגדול הזה מתגלה בכל שנה, so because that light is being revealed every year. However, if you do not have the consciousness that this light is available and you call it in with the reading of the Megillah and the other mitzvot of Purim, never happened to you. For you, it's not Purim. For you, it is Passover. Why? Because that revelation passes over you and you miss it. And that light, and that's a secret, that light that is being revealed is there to subdue and surrender that hard, dark side. That is what's so powerful and so special about it. Only when you are aware, and that's what redemption is about. It's about being aware that the reality is not what you see with the eyes. The reality is what's in the background, the tree of life that is happening around us. Okay, so the first thing, as we said, that's the reading of the Megillah. By the reading of the Megillah, you calling the Megillah. You call in that awesome light so you can overcome that dark side that is called disbelief, uncertainty, doubt, spiritual sleepiness, and lack of awareness. Now, but that's not enough. The other thing is the whole thing of charity. And there is a saying, in order to build the vessel for all that light, you need to create special forces of light and vessel, and that's called gifts. The first side is the gifts to the poor. Why? Because the Malchut, our world, is poor, and when we do give charity, we force with the consciousness that we do give charity on Purim in order to bring in the spiritual light of the above to that physical place. And the poor person, we give him, he is representing the poor, the poverty of our humanity. Humanity today is very poor. Most of us are so greedy because we think that only money, alcohol, goods that you buy in the mall or you order online, that's the only thing that will make you happy. That's poverty like never been before. How do we awaken the poverty of humanity, of Malchut that is in exile? When we give charity, we have to meditate that we are bringing the light of the above down, and the same way we give to the poor, the Creator will give us his charity. That light of Purim will fulfill us and will be revived by that. So that by doing the charity below, we are forcing the Creator, forcing. He wants it, but you know, that's the law is that no coercion in spirituality. You cannot force somebody to be rich. He has to want it. He has to want it. He has to desire. He has to crave for it. So that's how we create that. When we say, I'm in the name of the poor humanity, I'm awakening that power by giving charity to the poor. Okay. The second thing, still in the same mitzvah of charity, there is a machatzit shekel. So what is the story of machatzit shekel? The mitzvah of machatzit shekel, giving half a shekel, nowadays, today, is the giving half a shekel, appears in the Torah at the beginning of Parashat Kitisa, okay? And it says everyone should give it. It is to pay an offering to the Lord half a shekel. Okay, half a shekel is 1/5 of an ounce of silver by the standard of the sanctuary shekel. And a shekel equals 20 gerah. If you know Hebrew, you know that today's shekel is divided into 100 agora. The ancient shekel was divided into 20 gerah. You hear agora and gerah, units. Today, it is customary to give half a shekel donation which is the worth of 9 grams of pure silver. Today, it is with a market value of today, it's $8 or 26 Israeli shekels, new shekels. And that should be done before the reading of the Megillah. In most communities, it's being done just before the reading of the Megillah in the synagogue. Okay, giving that half a shekel for every soul in the household that I think is older than 3 years old. And by this, so what is the secret of the half a shekel gift? Okay, and the secret is why, what's the secret? Because why 20 or why 100? Because it's 10 by 10, either 10 plus 10 or 10 multiple by 10. Everybody, every human being, deep inside, without the abnormalities, without the craziness we go through, but deep inside, everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants a happy life. How happy for 1 to 10? 10. Everybody wants a happy family. How happy? 1 to 10. Of course you want 10. A business, career, whatever health, you want it 10. The point is that we are busy all our lives, especially in our society, to take and to take and to take, and you find most people are just takers. What's the problem? It's illegal to be takers. The cosmic law is against taking. Why? We already took everything we could ever have, and more than that. We already took it in the endless before the Tzimtzum, before the endless is being shattered into this physical world. Okay, why? Because we wanted to create, we wanted to give. So every time, the law is you cannot have 10 just because you want. It's not wanting, and desiring is not a big enough vessel. Did you ever see an egoistic, selfish person that wants everything really happy, really satiated? I'm talking satiated for long term. No, no, you can't find them. Why? Because, as it says by Rabbi Ashlag, after the Tzimtzum, in the beginning of the creation, the desire to receive was excluded as a real vessel to receive. The fact that you want is not enough. You want it 10, give 10. When you give with devotion, caring, and loving, and appreciation, whatever you do, every interaction, you give 10, the giving of the 10 creates that chesed. Remember 72 hours they fasted, they gave with each other to each other. Chesed is 72. When you give chesed, when you give out of yourself, then you create the real vessel that can never be taken away from you, will stay forever. Charity stays forever. Tzidkato omedet la'ad. So why do we give only 10? Because the 10 of receiving, we have it. We're born with that. But in order for the 10 lights of the tree of life to settle in our life, we have to give 10. Why silver? You cannot give gold, because silver is the white metal that symbolizes the energy of chesed, loving kindness, right column, sharing. Gold is red, judgment, left column, okay? Receiving. So when you give the half a shekel with that consciousness, then you create a vessel for receiving the light of Purim and the power of Purim for the whole year. So one of the greatest Kabbalists of the last century, Rabbi Chaim Falaji, previous century, he says anyone who gives half a shekel is assured that he is a member of the heavenly world and no harm will happen to him in that year. And even if there is a decree on him or his household members, it will be canceled. That person will not suffer poverty that year. And the one who keeps giving half a shekel every year will have children and long life. That's what he was a great Kabbalist. He wrote the whole Shulchan Aruch with a Kabbalistic commentary and more. So it's only $8 per person, 26. You don't give half a shekel to the poor. That's charity. Charity is, I think, it's something like 25 shekels per person. Okay, but half a shekel you give to a local institution, usually to your synagogue, to a charitable, to something. It's like during the years of the temple, the half a shekel was given to the temple. And therefore, when you give, you don't say, this is my half a shekel. This is in memory of half a shekel. Every year before Purim, the Jewish nation worldwide will donate half a shekel per capita. That money was kept in the treasury of Beit HaMikdash, of the temple, and with that money, the offerings of the public offerings have been bought for a whole year, which means every day there was an offering, public offering, and you had a part of it because it was with your money. Every Jew around the world sent that money to the treasury of the temple. Today we don't have the temple physically, so you give it to your charity, to your temple, whatever synagogue, whatever association that you think is revealing light to the world. Okay. The second thing to reveal the light, so as we said, the charity, the half a shekel, the giving of money on that day of Purim is to build the vessel and to force the light to stay here in this world. And the second aspect, after the money, is the, in order to leave those lights in this world, is Seudat Purim, the feast, the meal of Purim, drinking and happiness. And what does it mean? Drinking and eating, you need both. And he explains when achila is achal Youdkevitch. You eat from the Youdkevitch. What is Youdkevitch? The first two letters of the tetragrammaton of the Youdkevitch. Keter Chochma Bina. That's the upper three. So on Purim, we eat from the upper three. And we drink. Shtiya is Shata Youdkevitch. We drink from the upper three. There's never time like this. Okay? Unless you have something similar, because you have to meditate the same meditation when you eat before Yom Kippur. Because you need to build a vessel, a physical vessel, for the light you're going to receive during Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur there's only light. When do you build a vessel for it to stay? That's the meals that you eat on the day before Yom Kippur. Okay, so you have to meditate on that. That's why we must do that Purim meal. You have to be happy. You have to eat bread, a whole seudah. Seudah is to support yourself and others, and drink wine. And here comes about, why does it say that the person needs to drink wine on Purim? It says in the Talmud. How do you know you drank enough? Ad shelo yeda ben hahu Haman leBaruch Mordechai. Can he tell? The person cannot tell the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. You're so nuts, you're so out of your mind, you can't tell the difference. Okay? That's how long. Some people get, and halacha is asking, some people are getting very sick when they drink. What should they do? So you drink till you fall asleep. When you fall asleep, you can't tell the difference. But what's the meaning of it? Hakavanai, the meditation is, says the Rizal, there's always, in the dark side, there is a holy spark that sustains it. And that's why when we come to that place that we are so drunk and we say Baruch Haman, we really go into that spark and we take it out of there. Or you cannot say that when you are sober or when you're drunk, but you're not drunk enough. Also, there's another secret. Remember what it says? How much should you drink? Ad shelo yada. Ad de lo yada. By the way, how did we say we call the upper mazala keter, the corona, the divine corona, where all destinies are coming from? Okay, it's called Reisha de Light Yada. Ad de lo yada, Reisha de Light Yada. Same thing. Only why? When we draw the light of the Creator, we always have some expectations. You know, we think when we get the light of the Creator, then I can get my stuff organized and I already have an opinion about what do I want the Creator to give me. And that's a big limit, because we're asking that much when the Creator wants to give us endless. So only when we are drunk in Purim, we come to that place we do not limit. We do not, you know, when somebody is really drunk, he doesn't care. Money, everything looks so senseless, useless. Then we do not disturb. So we have to come to that place that the Creator can give us that upper light of everything. And we do not limit it with our limited, narrow-minded expectations. And that's what the drunk is about. However, most people do not react properly to being drunk. So if you drink wine till you're just simply like falling asleep and you're out of your mind in a way, that's okay. But when you drink the wine, remember, you drink the wine to draw in. When do we drink wine? You know, in a wedding or Shabbat, Kiddush, when we want to draw in the holy light. Same thing, every cup of wine, we have to concentrate it to draw that light. What do I want to do with that light? Let the light show me the way, what's good for me. You know, once a year, that we don't tell the light what to do. Which is whatever you give me, I'll take it in. Another vessel to bring in the light and it will stay, that's the Mishloach Manot. The Mishloach Manot, we said gifts to the poor. You give to the poor like you give him a gift. Who do you give gifts to? Somebody you really appreciate, and for you, it's an honor when you give him a gift and they're excited about it. That's how we give gifts to the poor, knowing they do us a favor taking the gifts. Now, Mishloach Manot is when we give food, literally food. Every package should have at least 2 kinds of food, okay? And we have to send to at least 2 people. Why does the Zohar is saying when we do that, we again build a vessel, and because you say yes, manot is 1 taf, matanot is 2 tafs. I don't want to go too much into it, but we're building a vessel so all that very, very special highlight that is coming down to our reality has a vessel. Because remember, when we give, we create the only real, true vessel for the light to come and dwell in our lives. So by this, we covered, I think, most of the topics that I wanted to cover. If somebody has a question, please ask. Anybody has a question?
I thought this was so extensive. It's fabulous. I've never had a class this long, and you were very nice to include me in it. So thank you very, very much. Really terrific. Thank you. Oh, well, I might have one question, but I'm not sure. Okay, thank you.
Have a happy Purim. If you have more questions, you can ask later. And see you around. Enjoy your Purim.